everybody, it's me, Angela Walters from quiltingismytherapy.com, and I have a quilty riddle for you. What's black and white and red all over? This video's featured quilt, of course. That's right, in this episode of Midnight Quilter, we're making a black and white quilt with a pop of red. Well, I have all my quilting supplies ready, so let's get to it. I love black and white quilts. They're graphic, modern, bold, and really perfect for any person or decor. But I've never actually made one until now. So I pulled together some of my favorite prints from my Abstractions fabric collection. This beautiful gray is going to be the background fabric, and then I have some nice, bold, graphic black and white prints. They're really going to look great on this quilt. And then to keep it interesting, I'm going to use a little bit of that watermelon red tonal fabric just to give it that pop of color. So now that I've got my fabrics figured out, let's get to cutting. I've designed this quilt pattern so it's laid out in columns, so I'm going to need lots of strips from each of the fabrics.
I got it.
Whoopsies. I love how these fabrics have just a little bit of contrast, but I know that when they all go together, it's going to make this beautiful kind of low volume look. And don't forget, if you want to get the kit or the pattern for the quilt I'm making in this episode, all you have to do is scan the QR code or click the link in the description box below. Then, for the blocks, I'm going to need some squares and some smaller rectangles. Now that I have strips and squares aplenty, it's time to see how the block comes together. The focus of this quilt is, of course, the quilt blocks. And I'm going to combine a plus block with some half square triangles to make a different star block type variation. But first, let's make those half square triangles. For this, we're going to do the 4 at a time method, where we take 2 squares, put them right sides together, sew a 1/4 inch seam around all 4 sides, and then I'll cut it in half diagonally twice to reveal those 4 half square triangles. Easy peasy. I guess I have to plug it in first. I think I've been drinking too much piecing potion if I forget to plug in my cord. Then I'm gonna press them open and trim them down to size. And let's be honest, I'm not the most precise piecer. I mean, that should be pretty obvious. So I like to make my half square triangles a little bit bigger so I can trim them down to the right size. It makes it look like I'm a great piecer even if I'm not. I guess this technically isn't only a black and white quilt since it has some gray fabrics in it, but I figure it's close enough. Once I've trimmed them down to size, I'm going to repeat that again to make a total of 8 half square triangle blocks for this quilt block. Now that I have those finished, it's time to start laying out the pieces of the block and to see how it all comes together. I'm going to lay out the half square triangle blocks as well as the strips of red fabric and the other prints that make up this beautiful block. I just love how the red comes together to make that plus in the center, and once the whole quilt comes together, it's almost going to have this cool woven look. Now all it's left to do is to sew the block together. And just like that, my adorable block is finished. Again, I'm loving the different black and white fabrics, that pop of color in the center, but this isn't the only portion to my quilt. I need to make some strip units to put this all together. For the strip units, I'm gonna lay out the strips that I cut out from the different fabrics. Sewing these strips together in one big unit and then cutting into smaller pieces just means I can get this quilt top finished faster. So I'm gonna quickly sew these together and then we'll talk about cutting them apart. I love sewing strips together because it's nice and mindless. I can munch on my popcorn, drink my piecing potion, just have a nice little party for one. And I'm especially loving my brand new sewing machine because it makes quick work of these strip sets. So I've sewed together all those strips and I pressed those seams open. It's gonna make the cutting go just a little bit easier. And now that I have this big long strip unit, I'm gonna start cutting it into the different widths I need to make the quilt. I'm gonna need some longer ones and some not so long ones. And because I need multiple sizes, I've actually made a couple of those strip units to have enough to cut down. I'm gonna finish cutting up my strip units and we'll see how the first column of this quilt comes together. I'm gonna start with one of the blocks. I've already added a couple strips around the side because this is gonna help separate it from those strip units, give it a little bit of a framed effect, just, make it look amazing. Then I'm gonna grab some of those strip units that I cut out earlier. And here's where we get to see the lovely layout of the fabrics in all their beautiful glory. I especially love how that red fabric almost looks like it's woven in and out of the block. So I'm gonna go ahead and sew this together and then we'll see how the rest of the quilt looks. So I've assembled that first column. We can see the block and the strip units on the side. And the other columns go together the same way, just with some different block placement and different size strips on the end. All I need to do now is use these beautiful fabrics as the outer borders of my quilt. And then using that same beautiful red fabric for the backing, I'm gonna go ahead and quilt it and get it bound, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's all finished. And this quilt is finished. I have to say, my first black and white quilt is a success. I love how easy it was to piece with those strip units on each side of the blocks, and I might be biased, but I think that modern layout is pretty awesome. Since all the fabrics are bright and busy, I decided to quilt it with an all-over quilting design just to add some lovely texture to it. I can't wait to snuggle up on the couch with my brand new quilt and eat my popcorn and drink my wine. And hey, if you want to get your hands on any of the supplies featured in this episode, or to watch other Midnight Quilter videos, all you have to do is scan the QR code in the corner or click the link in the description box below. And I'll be back soon with another episode of the Midnight Quilter. Until then, everybody, happy quilting.